Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video. Well, I have some sad news. The battery in my Bolt EV is kaput. So I got the new traction battery replacement and everything was going fine, and I was doing all sorts of testing. I think the BMS is still relearning, and I get in, and I wish I had my camera at the time. Screens all popped up, flashing, like, service this is done for ABS, traction control. I got some alerts, at least those ported through on my email, like some OnStar alerts. But I didn't have my camera at the time, and then, the car just died. And I don't know what to say. Apparently AGM batteries don't last more than 6.5, 7 years. So the 12-volt battery died, and I'm in unfamiliar surroundings right now because I'm in the Chevrolet Volt. Now, I apologize for the mess. I'm not going to clean the car up. These are basically ranch cars, so, there's pet hair and dirt and everything else, but the Chevrolet Volt, this is a 2015. This actually wasn't the first Chevrolet Volt I had. The first Chevrolet Volt I had was a 2011. But I traded that in after I'd put something like 100 and some odd thousand miles, 160, 170,000 miles. It was a ridiculous amount of miles that I'd put on that car before I traded it in, and then, I got this one. So, but then this is sort of a hand-me-down, and I don't drive it anymore. And I guess maybe this will be a good trip. So I have the Bolt EV's AGM 12-volt battery in the back. I called around to all the dealerships. The only one with a service center that's open today is, I think, about 70 miles away. And so I'm going to have to drive down there. But this is a perfect illustration of why I prefer the Bolt EV, because this is a normal type of trip for me, right? Not replacing a battery all the time, but just to get to the services you need and the shopping you need. Often you're driving 60, 70, 80 miles just in a single direction. And the Bolt EV would never have to be charged on this trip. And the truth is, the Volt won't have to be charged on this trip either, but you are burning a lot of gasoline. And so I think this is a good illustration of the difference and why I prefer the Bolt EV over this car. Not only is it a better seating position, better visibility, it's more comfortable overall, more powerful, faster acceleration. It's just so much cheaper to drive, and, less hassle because you don't have to deal with gas. So before we go, I just want to, sort of start up the car. Like I said, I apologize for the mess. A lot of my Bolt EV owner viewers aren't going to recognize the difference here. Like, they're not going to understand a lot of these displays. Well, let me turn that off right now. So this display is much more rudimentary than what's in the Bolt EV, and truth be told, I'm not as familiar with it as I would be normally. It's much more rudimentary, much more basic. It's somewhat quick to respond, but this is just sort of a standard Volt screen that you'll see. Shows things like your energy efficiency. Like, a lot of these, I'll just be perfectly honest, like, a lot of these don't really serve any sort of purpose, and I think GM put a lot of effort into them, but I just don't think that they really matter much. And then, of course, here, this lifetime efficiency, you'll see a lot of Volt owners with, lifetime MPGs way over 100, right? Whereas you can see, for us, we end up driving so much that, we end up burning gas on almost every trip. This power flow screen is sort of a carryover. Again, this is in the Volt. It doesn't really display all that much information. And in the Bolt EV, similar screen also doesn't display nearly enough information. Not the actual power in, what's the battery temperature, what's the battery capacity, that sort of thing. This only has level 1 and level 2 AC charging, so no DC fast charging is even optional. It's not even an option. You can do 8, 12 amps. It almost doesn't really make a difference. And then, of course, you just get to delay immediately upon plug-in. So that's sort of information. There's a tutorial here. Let's see. But well, whatever that is. Tire pressure, that's about normal for these temperatures, so I'm not too worried about that. Just right around 40 is where I try to keep it. Just lifetime usage, as you can see, 800, 900 gallons of gas used. And then this is a screen that I drive with most often. You'll see, so this is sort of the power, right, of, well, literally and figuratively. The power of electric is you have output from the battery and input to the battery. Whereas if you look at the internal combustion side, it's only output. There's no means of recouping your own energy while driving with a gas car, and well, that is exactly the problem with gas. So, at least a plug-in hybrid sort of bridges that gap a little bit in the sense that you have less brake wear, right? Like, I've never replaced the brakes on either of my Chevrolet Volts. My Bolt EV, over 160,000 miles, still original stock brakes, because ideally, almost all of that braking energy should be recouped into the battery, not being burned off as a friction pad. So there's still advantages to plug-in hybrids. The biggest issue is you can't really avoid the gas no matter what you do. So either the gas is going to go stale and needs to burn off, or you're going to end up burning it because your electric range isn't long enough to do what you need it to do. And then, of course, like, this is displaying 33 miles. That's because of recent driving efficiency, cold weather, and we're going to be doing 70 miles an hour for a lot of this trip. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to end up having to find a place to fill up with gas along the way. So I might do a couple of check-ins. Like I said, I can't really dally too much. They close at 4 normally. They might close earlier because they don't have any appointments. So I'm just going to jam it. So like I said, I'll probably do a couple of check-ins along the way. And yeah, let's hit the road. All right, I just made a quick pit stop here. We're at the top of Devil's Elbow. And actually, this is the same landing where when I made my first Chevrolet Bolt EV trip of about 1,100 miles 6 years ago, almost to the day, actually. 6 years ago this month is when I made that 1,100 mile trip in my Chevrolet Bolt EV, which is crazy to think how much time has gone by and how many different adventures I've gone on since. Why I wanted to stop here is I just kind of wanted to illustrate a couple of differences. If you look here on the energy screen, we've used 3.9 kilowatt hours. Now that's actually a little bit more than normal, but I mean, with conditions, it's understandable. Usually it's about 3.1, 3.2 kilowatt hours used to get up to this point in the Bolt EV, especially under normal conditions. But like I said, the Bolt EV and the Chevrolet Volt have very similar efficiencies, especially at low speeds. But if you go over here to the battery, you see how much of this battery that we've used. In the Bolt EV, it would only be about 5%. It'd barely be a tick. So here we are, I don't know what, almost 10 miles into the trip, and in the Bolt EV, you would have maybe used 5% of your battery. Here, we've almost used half, right? So this is why I wanted to kind of talk about here for a second is in the Volt, there are drive modes, right? And you can just press this button and it will, on the screen, toggle you through the different drive modes. And there's a normal, which is just standard, sport, which changes the pedal response, and then mountain, which holds a reserve. So here you see that gray is held in reserve, and it will actively bring the battery up to that amount. So we have a little bit more than mountain mode, but not much. And then the other one, of course, is just actual hold, which will maintain it at a certain, it'll actually kick on the gas engine to maintain that. So usually what I will do, and unfortunately the way they set it up, sport cannot be used with those other modes, which is crazy. So I'll normally use mountain mode, and the reason I do this is I want to keep a certain amount of battery capacity in reserve, and so your gas engine has a hard time maintaining enough power to actually propel you up hills or at freeway speeds consistently in all weather, everything else. So having that battery buffer at the bottom allows the electric motor to assist. And then, of course, you can also think of it as an insurance policy against running out of gas, right? You have this extra 15, 20 miles in the tank at any point in time. So if you come up short or can't quite make it to a gas station, this will let you get there. And then, like I said, it just also, if you're doing low-speed driving in your destination or whatever, it lets you maintain this battery buffer. And then it's also healthier for the battery. And what I'll do, though, on the return trip is because electricity costs so little and gas costs so much, I'll turn off mountain mode sometime on my return trip and try to time it so that I run out of electricity around the time I'm arriving home. And that's just what I do to maintain it. So anyway, enough jabbering. Let's get back on the road again because we're late for a very important date. We made it here. Everything was still open, luckily, and out with the old and in with the new. So picked up the new battery, no problems. Expensive, but I made sure to look at it. Format was the same. I guess my original battery must have been a previous label or something like that, but the new one works, or at least it's the same format, same size, same layout. So here's hoping that one lasts almost 7 years as well. We're ready to start heading back. So we're 80 miles into the trip, and again, this is just sort of illustrating the difference. Yes, I have about half the battery capacity left in reserve for the Volt, but I've already burned through over 1.5 gallons of gas getting this far. The way the Volt calculates things, it counts the electric miles for free. It calculates those as not using any gas at all. And so we used 1.65 gallons to go 80.1 miles. And so they're calculating that as 48 miles to the gallon. Realistically, though, of course, this is energy that you used. So it's not necessarily a fair way of looking at it. But one thing I will note, too, is just monitoring the efficiency, because it's been a while since I've done that. Like I was mentioning, at lower speeds, the Bolt EV is probably just a tad more efficient than this car. But once you hit 75, this car, the lower roof line, the aerodynamics kicks in. And this is seems to be about 5%, maybe a little bit more efficient than the Bolt EV at like 75 miles an hour. Rumor has it that GM is talking about a Chevrolet Malibu EV, which is an EV that I recommended that they create early on. That, along with the Equinox, along with the Colorado, even using the Bolt EV's powertrain as a basis. I think that would be good, because you're looking at, think about it this way: if the Bolt EV can easily do EPA rated range at 65 to 70 miles an hour, a Chevrolet Malibu EV using the exact same battery capacity would be pushing close to 300 miles. So you're talking about a highly efficient, great car for long-range travel, especially if they pair it with their new Ultium platform. So hopefully, GM, if you're listening, make that happen. We need a Malibu EV. Come on, let's get ourselves a nice, efficient sedan to join the Ultium family. So yeah, I'm gonna get ready to start heading back, and I'm gonna turn it back onto mountain mode, and let's hit the road. I haven't had lunch yet, and it's about time for that too. Alright, well, this is something you don't normally see me do on this channel, but it's the reality of driving a plug-in hybrid. Is I'm stopping to fill up gas. Part of it is I also want to grab some lunch too, and well, it's 12:19 right now, but I kind of have to hurry. I don't want to just block this pump because a number of these gas pumps are down. Now, I know people have told me that gas stations are 100% reliable and pumps never go down, but I'm looking at several gas pumps that are down right now, so I don't want to get yelled at over the PA for holding up the gas station. So I'm just going to run in, pay for the pump, and come out here and pump gas. Like I said, we pulled in at 12:20. If this were an EVgo charger, I would have already been charging right now. Just plug in and auto charge takes over. So, but this is the reality of owning a gas car, is sometimes you struggle with pumps that are down, crowded gas stations, and long lines at the payment and checkout. So, and then of course expensive cost for energy. So I'm going to have to deal with this, and then I can go grab some lunch. So just hold on a minute. Whew, that was a struggle. I can't believe how unreliable gas pumps are. This is crazy. This never happens, right? 3 gas pumps down at this site? That's ridiculous. So I don't know how gas car drivers do it without, geez, they must be stressed all the time thinking that their fueling stations are down. And then also, I got the receipt. So I arrived here, or I got out of my car to go refuel at 12:20, and so the receipt here is let's see if you guys see it. It's 12:28:51. So it took about 9 minutes, and I actually only put in 7 gallons. So someone who's filling up a much larger tank would probably spend a decent amount more time than that, though they might save that time, in fairness, going and not having to go in and get change, right? If you know you're going to put in $60, $80, $100 and not have change back, then maybe it will go a little bit faster. But for me, yeah, it was about 10 minutes. I didn't even use the bathroom, right? This was literally just walking in, waiting in line to pay the cashier, handing them cash, coming out, fueling my car, and then going in and getting the change again. So, yeah, so all told, I've been here probably 15 minutes now. Well, I can power on the car and find out. But I grabbed some lunch, so I'm going to go somewhere and eat. I'm not just going to sit here parked in the parking lot and eating at a Pilot parking lot. I'm going to go ahead and I wanted to check something out while I'm here in Dunnigan. So yeah, so we've been here for 15 minutes now. Yeah, let's get headed out, and so I can at least, enjoy my lunch. All right, well, that was ridiculously easy by comparison. Just swipe a card and AC charger activated right away, plug in, activated and charged, started charging right away. Should be noted too, so a couple of things while I'm here, I'll just go on a little bit of a diatribe here. That activated quickly because it's level 2 AC, right? Small modules, constantly powered up, just a switch of a button, and boom, you're charging. And that's one of the reasons why Tesla's superchargers charge so quickly, is because they tend to use smaller modules than a lot of the public charging providers. And so that module boot up time is what gives Tesla a much faster boot up time. Whereas ChargePoint, like their ChargePoint Express 250 units, I think those are a 32.15 kilowatt module, so less than 100 amps. And those actually boot up relatively quickly. Still not as fast as Tesla, but pretty quickly. And so it's really when you get to these higher power chargers with much larger modules that they take a lot longer for that cycle and boot up time, which is why that activation isn't as immediate as you see with like level 2 charging at home or in the public. But speaking of ChargePoint Express, this station, this is terrible. This tritium unit, this VFill RT50 or RTM50 or whatever, I think the RTM is the newer version. The RT50s, just like, unless they're constantly maintained, they just go down. And I guess this site never paid for, or I thought this was maybe part of the ChargePoint corridor, but maybe not. Either way, I feel like ChargePoint just needs to come here, come to Dunnigan, rip this goddamn unit out, and replace it with a ChargePoint Express 250, because this site is super important. This is sort of a backup site, overflow site for an Electrify America charger that's just on the other side of the street over there at the hotel motel. So this is an important place to have a charger. Obviously, you'd maybe want a little bit more than just this. The Level 2 is great as a backup, but this is a plug-in hybrid with a tiny battery. I get a lot out of plugging into a Level 2 AC, even for a short period of time. A big battery EV, not at all. But yeah, ChargePoint, just come here, change out this Tritium with a Express 250 or Express Plus, maybe even for power splitting. But right now, it's still off, it's still faulting, it's still unusable. And I mean, this site has a plug share score of 1 for a reason. So yeah, just fix it. But anyway, speaking of fixins, I'm going to eat my lunch, and then we'll head out when we head out. Well, all good things must come to an end, like this lunch and this charging session. So let's see. Where are we? So it looks like we were here for about 20 minutes. I'll confirm on the station when I shut off the charge. But that's probably only enough to maybe offset, like you see the miles went up on the battery used for range. But it was probably only enough to offset. So now if I turn it into mountain mode, it's not going to recharge the battery. It's just going to basically hold it at what it currently is. Quick 20-minute lunch. If this would have been the Bolt EV charging up, easily would have added 80, 90 miles of range, especially if you count the time spent refueling over at the Pilot. So basically when Pilot gets their new EVgo chargers in, and that Pilot station in Dunnigan is one of the first ones targeted for that deployment, then I could have pulled in with the Bolt EV, plugged in, grabbed my lunch, ate it there, and we would be leaving about now probably, and I would have added over 100 miles of range. So, and then of course faster charging cars, Kia EV6 would have already been at basically 80 or 90%, right? Even if you came in basically empty. So let's get ready to go. All right, well, we made it to the point where I turn off mountain mode. Actually, I turned it off a few miles back as we crested a small hill, but we're now at the base of Devil's Elbow, and according to the range estimator, we have 13 miles of range left, which actually might not even be as far as we have left to go. But again, the number that you're shooting for with the Volt is to arrive basically exhausting your entire battery, because that's the thing that basically you're going to replenish all the time, right? Whereas gasoline you can't replenish on your own. So this is where I turn it off. And then of course, I mean, this is a really steep hill. In some places the grade is 10, 11, 12% or more, and there's a lot of rock slides, things like that. So you do have to be cautious. So I'll be driving slower and things like that. But just the elevation increase and the load from that kind of a elevation or that kind of a grade takes a toll, especially on a smaller battery electric. And in fact, I'm probably going to start incorporating Devil's Elbow into some testing that I do when I review EVs, in particular things like round trip efficiency for regenerative braking, because it's a really good way of gauging how much energy you can recoup on a very steep grade that's a couple miles long versus how much you used to go up that elevation increase. So anyway, though, yeah, we're almost home, and so let's keep trucking. Made it back, ran out of battery electricity, probably about 4 or 5 miles ago. It's 160 miles total. So, yeah, just on electricity alone, we were able to go just under 35 miles. And, that's in keeping, right? This is, again, why the lifetime efficiency of this Volt is less than 60 miles per gallon. This trip was only about 44. So, and one other thing I realized I really do miss with the Bolt EV versus this Volt is the regenerative braking. This doesn't have true one-pedal braking, and it also doesn't have the regen on demand paddle. And that really limits things. It just doesn't feel quite as, and then of course it's not as powerful, not as peppy, that sort of thing. So, but either way, I've got a battery to put in. Oh, there you are. Well, the moment of truth. I hooked up my trusty, busty Craftsman multimeter tool. Read over 12.6 volts, which is a lot better than the 3.5 it was reading before. But yeah, moment of truth. Like, I opened the door and everything lit up, right? But it wasn't until I started it before that all those errors came up. So let's just turn the car on and see what happens. Geez, doesn't anyone dust around here? Oh, turn on the radio. Okay. Turn the radio up. All right. Looky at that. Oh yeah, that also changed. Look, that's 4.1 miles per kilowatt hour. That almost always resets to the 3.9 mile per kilowatt hour. And speak of the devil. Oh, and then of course, yeah, it takes a while for the tire pressure monitoring system to relearn. So yeah, that's normal. So let's see. So yeah, so this tire pressure monitoring system can take a while to relearn. None of the other errors are coming up. Yes, if you take your eyes off the road, you can crash and burn. We know that. We're unplugged. The battery was cold, so it's starting to condition already. Actually, that might have been what caused the 12-volt battery to die like so rapidly, right? It was having a hard time. And I had already unplugged it, and I turned it on, and so this battery conditioning would have made a massive drain on that 12-volt battery, and probably just killed it outright. I mean, it was already on its last leg. So yeah, there you have it. 12-volt battery replaced. Looks like all of the errors are off. This is just typical 12-volt battery behavior, right? And so a lot of people get these weird errors, StabiliTrak, transmission, ABS, whatever. It's all BS. Essentially, with an electric vehicle, one of the things that I think is the biggest disconnect for people is because all of the computer systems, everything goes through a BMS for an EV. Everything goes through like ECU, all of that. When the 12-volt battery starts to die, it creates all sorts of errors within the system, and so people will look at it as though, oh, there's something massively wrong with the car. It's not. It's just that the battery died. Now, this is also maybe an interesting comparison to TFL, right? So they got the GMC Hummer EV, and all of a sudden it died on them, right, in the middle of the road, and they were getting these weird errors. Well, it sounds like their truck was shipped with a faulty 12-volt battery, to me. Now, they said that there's some sort of a software code. I wonder if that software code is just with the DC to DC converter, right? Maybe it wasn't tending to the battery when it needed to. This is, 2023, the year of no free tendies. So I think, I think that this is a good example of all of the errors, right, that you could see, and it's such a simple, easy remedy for an electric vehicle. Just replace the 12-volt battery. I mean, not for me. I had to drive 160 miles in a plug-in hybrid to do it, but simple enough to do. As far as repairs go, it's not that expensive, a couple $100 for a new battery, and hopefully this one lasts as long as the other one did. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it was informative. It's sort of a day in the life of an EV owner who came from a plug-in EV, a plug-in hybrid, who now has to go back to the plug-in hybrid for a while. It's like a love triangle, it's always dirty, and it's, but it's sometimes fun. And anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I don't know where I'm going with it. It's the rainy day blues. Blame it on that. But I'll probably just take this first spin just to confirm everything is working right. And yeah, I hope this video is helpful, informative, entertaining. I hope those gas pumps get a little bit more reliable so that we can hopefully look at that as a future form of transportation. And, well, as always, thank you for watching.